and welcome to another SpeakUp session. SpeakUp is a unique collaboration between KeyNote women speakers and SpunkGo, through which KeyNote community members will share their experiences and expertise on various topics each month to inspire and ignite meaningful conversations on subjects that matter and bring communities together through SpunkGo. KeyNote Women Speakers is the world's leading directory of female public speakers. A nonprofit organization run entirely by volunteers, KeyNote is on a mission to bring diversity to speaking stages across the world. They offer a much acclaimed public speaking training program for women who want to increase their confidence in speaking up, either at home or at work. KeyNote was twice awarded the Outstanding Achievement for Gender Inclusion at the Women Hero Awards in 2022 and 2021 for their groundbreaking work on moving the needle on diversity on stages. SpunkGo is an all-girls global student organization that operates in 30 countries with over 7,000 members. SpunkGo holds regular LifeSkill webinars for young women in various chapters by hosting successful women entrepreneurs and professionals in their webinars. In today's episode of Speak Up, we are glad to host KeyNote woman, Aarathi Arumugam. Aarathi is an entrepreneur and mother, passionate about being in business and connecting communities through causes close to her heart. She is an active volunteer and board member at organizations like Aware Singapore and Malaysian Association in Singapore, and is the financial controller of Daughters of Tomorrow, a charity empowering economically challenged women into sustainable employment, thus enabling their families towards social mobility. Aarathi is deeply passionate about supporting causes that ensure a brighter future for children and youth. Inspired by her own kids, she is dedicated to making a meaningful contribution to create a mindful and positive society, which her children will then inherit. Through her lived experiences, Aarathi will reflect on why it is imperative for young people to equip themselves with the knowledge and skills needed to create a more sustainable world. So welcome to Speak Up, Aarathi. Aarathi, I think you're on mute. Let me just...
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, hello everybody. It's nice to see everybody. And thank you for spending your evening, afternoon, morning with SpunkGo and us today. It's such an honor to be asked to speak today. So I'm not going to waste your time so much. I'm just going to jump in now. Just allow me to share my screen. Hang on. All right, I hope everybody can see my screen. Who Runs the World? I don't know if you are familiar with the song, but this is by Beyonce, where she started this movement where she wanted to empower all the women around the world to kind of, rise up and power themselves up. Why have I chosen only girls, even though it's International Youth Day? I'll tell you in a little while. So, what do all these women in that image have in common? Can anyone just put it in the chat if you can kind of guess what you think these women have in common? I'm just going to give you a little while to kind of put your answers in. All these women in that image, I hope you know who they are. One's Wonder Woman, one is Marilyn Monroe, there's Malala, there's Cleopatra. Do you know what they have in common? All right. The gender is the same. Very good. Anything else? They're all women, obviously. Yes. Anything else? I love that. They're happy. Exactly. What's made them happy? So I actually think, oh, brilliant. They stand for themselves, not defined by men, individual personalities, confident, women empowerment, young. I love these answers. Fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, you're right. They come from such different backgrounds and countries. They are very individual personalities. And I think most importantly is they have used their qualities to allow them to build communities around them. And their communities around them support each other, they inspire each other, and most importantly, they make the space to the space they already live in a lot better than when they found it. Just like all of you guys today. You are all change leaders within your own areas, within your own lives. And you all come together to help, teach, improve, and support each other and the communities around you. And I think it's important that you understand that you're the future. Yeah, somebody said, Sana, exactly, you are the future, and you're the one who's going to help your communities as well as yourselves, right? Rise up and thrive so that you can achieve social mobility. I will explain social mobility in a little while. So yes, happy belated International Youth Day, everybody. Like Netra announced, I am Aarathi Arumugam, and I'm really pleased to be here. I am from Malaysia, and I trained as an accountant. I've had several careers in my short life. And I right now, as Netra said, I work with a non-profit organization here in Singapore called the Daughters of Tomorrow. We empower women from low-income backgrounds in communities within Singapore to reintegrate into the workplace. And we do this through processes and programs that offer training. We offer a community for these ladies and practical assistance, mainly around caregiving and logistic help, like, for example, phone cards, transport cards, so that they may actually get to interviews. They may allow their children to get to school. They are able to pay for, pocket money and food while their children are in school. So that's what my day job is. I also speak under KeyNote speaking, and my topic is fossuitis. F-O-S-U-itis, right? Fossuitis. It's the fear of speaking up and how we need to overcome the fear of speaking up. How we have to harness our power to speak up about things that matter to us and to our communities. Just like how Zubi's saying, right? She wants to address issues that are strong in her region. She wants to strongly address these issues. And I think it's important for them. Okay. So before we kick off, I'd like to do a quick roundup of the countries that you all come from. So if you won't mind going to, oops, did it move? Okay, if you don't mind, if you can see that slide, can you scan that QR code and just kind of participate in that little pop quiz? If you can't access the QR code or the link, just type your countries in if you already haven't. Yeah? And I'm just going to give you a little while to do that.
Slide has moved, Aarathi.
Pardon?
The slide has moved. Yeah, it's fine.
No, it's because I'm moving. I just want to show you where it's coming from. It's all right.
Can you go back to the QR code, because I don't think everybody got a chance to scan it.
Okay. Okay, I think most people aren't able to access the code, and that's fine. So we've got Kenya, we've got Malawi. Oh, sorry. Zimbabwe. Pakistan, I know I saw just now. Ghana. Karachi. Brilliant. That's fantastic. Great. Uganda as well. Sri Lanka. Oh, excellent. Where's Tandojam? I don't know where Tandojam is from. But welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking for about 20 minutes, and then I will open the floor for questions and whatever queries and updates that you'd like to share with me, with the group. Please feel free. I think Binu, correct me if I'm wrong. They can, or Netra, correct me if I'm wrong. They can put their questions in the chat, and we will address them a little bit later, just at the end of my slides. Okay, so this year it's International Youth Day, and the theme is green skills for youth. I wanted to explore a little bit about what actually that meant. All right, so green skills is basically around knowledge and abilities, values and attitudes that you have to live in, develop, and support a sustainable resource so that you can build an efficient society. Right? So what does all of that mean? So green skills we've already kind of covered. It's basically transferable skills as well as technical skills. You need transferable skills that are your social skills, basic, Microsoft Word, whatever, writing, all of that kind of stuff, speaking even, and technical skills. I think in this world, you need a little bit of computer knowledge, you need a little bit of, now it's AI, and now it's a lot of engineering. So you need a little bit of that kind of knowledge so that you can actually be useful in terms of bringing together ideas, programs, so that you can actually build a sustainable community for yourself. I think in your lifetime, you're going to endure quite a few climate changes. I don't really want to talk a lot about that because I think everybody talks about it all the time. But know this, whatever climate changes that are going on will definitely impact building sustainable communities. And that's what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about how you can use your green skills to build sustainable communities, to thrive, so that sustainable communities around you actually make sense and they can actually grow. Okay. A lot of what will happen in your lifetime includes significant changes in economic opportunities. Because of climate change, this will affect economic opportunities, right? It threatens jobs, right? So about 40 to 50% of jobs that you know today will be gone in the next, 5-6 years. Having said that, for each job that's lost, there will be 2 or 3 jobs created within the sustainable economy. So you win some, but you also will lose some. Okay. The skill demand is exceeding in supply, and there will be disparities that will have to be addressed. The disparities that we face today will still be faced, hopefully in a lesser fashion, but you will still face disparities that you will have to address. Okay. Why have I put 49.6% of the female population in the whole world? Because women hold up half the sky. And that's most of you here today. You hold the power to actually move things forward. All right. I've used 49.6 as I've taken it can be, this percentage can be skewed depending on sex or gender. But I'm not going to go into the gender discussion because it's going to present quite an anomaly in these numbers. So for the sake of time, I've taken the sex ratio, i.e., how many of us are born with female sex organs that make us female? That's what I'm looking at. Okay, so that's your 49.6%. This ratio differs across the various countries we all come from between, Malawi, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. It all varies, mainly because of various factors. Sometimes health, sometimes immigration, sadly, sometimes to abortion practices and sex selection practices that are prevalent in some countries. But I wanted to share this little map that hopefully I can get through to you. Can you see that map? Okay, so I'm going to play this, and you can see this is the population of women over the years from 1960 to 2021. And you can see how I'm going to play that again. And if you look at, countries like Africa, all right, and you have all your Asian countries, your India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia. If you just look at the colors of those countries, you will find that some of them start off blue, but they end up being red and pink by the end of 2010. Can you see that? So generally, in some of the African countries, the population of women hover around 50 to 52%. Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you're all at about 48%. Malaysia is also at 48%. Singapore is at 47%. All right. So I just wanted to highlight this because it's important. Sorry. It's important that you know what your power is. Okay. With 50%, there's so much that we can do. And I'd like you to start thinking about how sustainable some of the practices around immigration, around economies, around opportunities for remote work, how sustainable are some of these practices in the communities you live in? Sana has said there are no opportunities for remote jobs for ladies who want to work from home so that they want to become independent. Exactly. So what is your power to figure out how you can make this a sustainable option for women in your regions, for women in your communities? How occupational gender is likely to persist, including pay discrepancies, career advancement, career benefits because of gender. So how can you start building sustainable communities? Start thinking about that, and we'll get into it in a little while. Okay. My persuasion can build a nation, endless power, and with our love we can devour. Can anyone guess where this is from or who said it? Just put your answers in your chat. Just take a wild guess. It doesn't matter. There is a right answer, but it's just a little bit of fun. Anyone? It's from a song. I'll give you that much. Yes! Brilliant! It is. It's Beyonce from Who Runs the World. Exactly. You obviously know your Beyonce lyrics. I wanted to put that out there because I want to explore what your persuasion means to you. What does that mean? How do you persuade communities around you, people that you want to come on your team? How do you persuade them to do what you think is right? How do you persuade them so that they can all come together and build a nation or a community that is safe, that allows everybody to thrive, that has options for people to earn a living? What's your power? Do you believe that you have a voice? And if that voice is powerful enough, can you make it a collective voice? Because when you have a collective voice, that power becomes endless because it's repeated over and over and over again. Betty has asked, what's hindering young women from acquiring green skills? We'll get there in a minute. So it's in your hands to develop some of these transferable skills so that you can move that needle of social mobility. How can you build that voice? How can you build a persuasive voice so so that you can push your communities further and further and further ahead, so that they can move that needle of social mobility. What is social mobility? So social mobility is actually how you move within the social structure of the community that you live in. Okay, and what does that what influences that move from that through that social mobility needle, right? What influences it? Obviously, economic advancement, but how do you get economic advancement? Before you get there, you need a job, or you need something that pays you something that allows you to move through that cycle, right? So the reason I wanted to talk about your voice and your persuasion is because I want you all to think about the fact that as youth leaders, as change leaders, what can you do to bring your power higher? What can you do to make it really amplified so that you inspire other people around you and communities around you to push that idea forward? I don't know how many of you have seen the recent Barbie movie, but this movie actually has been quite interesting within pop culture. And given the work that I do within the communities, which are all women, it started me thinking about some of the messages of sustainability that the phenomenon of Barbie might have. Obviously, it's the obvious ones, right? Plastic, fashion, body image, chemicals, monetary, all of these come into that whole sustainability argument. But I think there's also the idea of ambition, the sustainability of ambition. How do we as women, how do we as change leaders, how do we as youth build ourselves up to the ambition that we have for ourselves? Within Daughters of Tomorrow, we meet ladies who have had to start families before they were ready. Owing to cultural expectations, they then put whatever ambitions they have on hold because they are told they will be taken care of. All they have to do is take care of the family. This is such a huge ask of anyone. And I think some of you from some of the countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh and stuff, I think you all are familiar with some of these ideas. But after they accept this task of taking care of the family and putting ambition on hold, what happens is then they're tossed around because of decision of others. Other people make decisions based on their goals and their ambitions. And so then the women are then not in control. They're not living a sustainable life, either due to illness, lack of independent income. Many of them are estranged from families. So then, how can they build themselves up so that they can actually build a community that's sustainable, that feels sustainable? So a sustainable community is one where, like I said, everyone thrives, where education is affordable to everybody in that community. Representation and cultural ideas are something that needs to be made aware, needs to be made acceptable, needs to also be something that is fair, right? Cultural norms are out, some of them are outdated. They need to be updated, given the climate and the times in which we live in. A sustainable community is one where opportunities are offered to everyone. The same opportunities are offered to everyone, regardless of sexual orientation or age. A sustainable community is one where there is sufficient support for everyone to create, build, and make a living within their resources. And if they don't have the resources, then they should be allowed to access the resources to improve themselves, should the need arise. The Institute of Sustainable Communities, ISC, talks about how a sustainable community takes into account and addresses multiple human needs, not just one, at the exclusion of all others. It's a place where people of diverse backgrounds and perspectives feel welcome and safe, where every group has a seat at the table, where prosperity is shared. So it is a long-term perspective, right? It focuses on anticipating and adapting to change, both now and in the future. So I talked about how I didn't want to cover climate sustainability at the moment, or fashion sustainability, or material sustainability. But you see how all of these things are linked to create a sustainable community. And to do that, you need to start from ground zero. You need to start from what is your community's need first, before you can even move forward and do and solve all the world's problems, right? So you need to know what you want your sustainability, what you want your sustainable community to look like. What does it feel like, right? Is it that all girls are able to go to school? Is it that all children can access schoolhouses with cover? Is it that all women and men get the same kinds of jobs? Do they share child rearing and child caregiving responsibilities? Do they have the same access to food, energy? Do they have the same access to housing? And when I say same access to housing, I mean, are they made to pay the same, or are they forced to pay more? And how does this community then support each other? So for example, if parents need to go to work and they are unable to care for their children or unable to care for their aging parent, can the community support them? Can we build a caregiving scenario or caregiving system within that community so that the village takes care of itself? Can we build that? Can we go back to when our grandmothers were alive? I'm talking in Singapore, right? Where things have progressed so much that everybody is an entity on its own. And this development of this village, it takes a village to survive, and it takes a village to raise a child. This whole concept of going back to sharing responsibilities within the community is now becoming more and more important. So think about, what does a sustainable community look like for you? What does it feel like? Does it feel safe? Does it feel fulfilling? Does it make you happy? Do you want to go back to that community at the end of the day and share your life stories? Share their life stories. Laugh, cry with each other. That community that you build, the more that you build it, the more you make it feel like what is comfortable for you will mean it's comfortable for other people too. And when you do that, you automatically just lift everybody, because everybody wants to support each other. Everybody wants to help everybody else. So, what are the elements of a sustainable community? There are 4 elements, all right? Leadership, civic engagement, and responsibility. What does that mean? So it's stuff that I've already said, but I'm just going to repeat it again. Equal opportunity for all individuals to participate and influence decisions that affect each of their lives. Adequate access to public information. Viable non-governmental sector. Why is that important? A viable non-governmental sector is the one that will fight for those rights that may not necessarily be represented by the majority. You need a voice to talk about communities that aren't being represented. An atmosphere of respect and tolerance is very, very important to ensure a sustainable community. A sustainable community is one that encourages individuals of all ages, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion to participate based on one vision. And that vision should be that your community is sustainable. The other element is ecological integrity. And that's basically everything around your climate sustainability, right? Basic human needs for clean air, water, nutritious and uncontaminated food, protection of the local ecosystem and biological diversity, conservation of water, land, energy, non-renewable sources around you. That's very key. Because if all of that is gone, how do you build a sustainable community? Economic security. And this is when sustainable jobs, sustainable wages, sustainable companies come into play, because they are the ones who are going to offer a financially viable economic base. They're going to have reinvestment of resources in the local economy, and they're the ones who are going to build the variety of jobs that is needed to support a sustainable community. To find those jobs that you might be able to do from home, or you might be able to do part-time, or you might be able to get gig work for, that will support all the different various lifestyles that make up a community. And the last element is obviously social well-being. You know, social well-being can be everything from food supply, health services, a place that is safe from crime, create a place that allows creative expression through art, a place where there are public spaces where people can congregate. But most importantly, social well-being is about building that community around you. When there's a community that faces similar troubles, similar challenges, similar journeys, when there is a community that supports each other, when there is a collective voice, can they take these stories, can they take these communities and do something with? Can you then take that collective voice and do something with that, so that their lives can change or be improved or move a little bit, so that things aren't as dire as it might have been when they're looking at it on their own? So are you guys ready? Are you ready to take all of these voices that you hear, all of these, challenges and pitfalls that you hear within your communities? Are you able to take that and build a community that will last? Build a community that is safe. Build a community that will support each other. Yes, you need to be brave. I think you have seen things in your community that I will have never seen and I cannot imagine, right? And there is a level of bravery that is needed to actually take these voices and run with it. And how will you do that? You have to raise awareness. You have to tell people what's going on. You have to speak up. You have to speak about it to anybody who will listen. Write about it, talk about it, do videos, run talks like this, and tell everyone who's willing to listen about what's happening. Have a plan in place. Build those 4 pillars that you need to build that sustainable community. Get partners involved to help you with some of the socio-economic pillars. Get partners who will help you with the legal and other financial responsibility pillars. Work with people. Be free with your information, but be very clear what your end goal needs to be. And that is a sustainable community. It's not just about turning off the switches and making sure plastic is being recycled and you're reusing clothes. It's more than that. It's building an ecosystem that has jobs, that is economically viable, that will sustain a community over years. I hope that's been good. I'm going to stop now. And I think there's been loads of questions coming through in the chat. Shall we try and address some of these questions, Netra and Binu?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
Netra is going to answer read out those questions for you, and you can have that conversation. I will hand it over to Netra to handle that. We'll
Great.
just stop your sharing, so then.
Yeah, I'll do that now.
Cool.
So first of all, I want to thank you, Aarathi, for this insightful conversation. I think what you've done here has ignited discussions, even in this chat room, that are really, really telling about the state of the world right now. So, and this started because of you. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So we have a few questions here, and they are honestly, they're a handful. So the first question is, what is hindering young women from acquiring green skills, and how can organizations support the acquisition of green skills among young women in, say, places like Africa?
Okay, so I don't think there's anything stopping young women from acquiring green skills, right? It's your basic stuff. With the internet, the way it is at the moment, you can access any of these abilities and knowledge literally at your fingertips. Figure out what it is that you want as an efficient society. And once you know, and once you have that, building that bank of knowledge, there's nothing to stop you. What can organizations do? Support them, employ them, give them employment, train them. There's so many versions of employment. It does not have to be permanent employment. It can be internships. It can be study programs. It can be scholarships. There are so many ways in which to cut how to impart this kind of knowledge and how to impart this kind of training within these areas of green skills. So there's really, the sky is truly, I think, the limit. You asked how we would do it in particular countries. Africa was mentioned. I'm afraid I do not have that knowledge, but from what I understand, there's been a lot of advancement in terms of technology and company business within Africa around the sustainability scene. And I also understand that they are very, very encouraging of young people coming into these industries, because obviously, you know, there is a need for new skill and new minds and new ways of thinking. And so I actually don't see there being a barrier to entry for girls or women within these industries in Africa. In Pakistan and India, perhaps there might be some limitations because they might not be able to travel too far from their village or their their towns. Unfortunately, I think that's quite unfortunate. But I think in this day and age of remote working, of Zoom, of Microsoft Teams, it's going to be hard. I'm not going to say it's very easy. And I cannot even profess to say that I can even imagine how difficult this is. But I will say that if you really want to build something new, and you really want to trailblaze, figure out a way that works for you. There's nothing stopping you. I mean, there are these barriers, but you can figure out how to get around these barriers. That's what I mean by there's nothing stopping you.
Definitely, I completely agree with that. Yeah. So the second question we have is on sort of the same wavelength as the first. Are there any specific ways an organization can help women in less developed countries realize that they should have their own independence, reduce the perception that a woman should depend on their spouses? Because I feel like after the pandemic, these efforts have been reduced.
Yeah, so I think from my experience, the main thing to start with is confidence. With the pandemic, and because it just kind of shut everything down, and it almost feels like we've gone a few steps backwards in terms of women's independence. And so therefore, that level of confidence has also dropped. The first thing that needs to be done in these countries is actually like a confidence program. It does mean that you have to go out there and meet with these ladies and get them together. The first way to do that is to build a community that they trust. So the way, and again, this is all from experience, it may work, it may not work, but the best thing is to find women who, in that community, who feel the same way, who actually want to build themselves up again. Get them to start their own community, get them to influence the women around them, because everybody is feeling the same way. Some are less brave than the others. So get them together, start doing confidence building curriculum with them, right? Everything from affirmations to how do you apply makeup, to how do you do an interview, how do you have workplace conversations, how do you talk about something that's not family, not children, not cooking the next meal, how do you make conversation, how do you build up your general knowledge. All of this kind of stuff makes for a confident person, never mind woman, right? Because you have things to talk about, you have things that interest you. Once that happens, then you start introducing them to various jobs or various roles or various tasks. It could be anything from, if possible, job tours, right? So you partner with corporates and take people on job tours. You can do a virtual job tour, right? Those are the things that need to be broken. They need to be shown the possibilities. When you don't have the imagination and you don't have that ambition, it's very difficult to see. So you need to help them see that. You need to introduce that to them. And again, like, you know, there's nothing stopping you to help these communities, to go and call a couple of corporate partners and say, hey, we've got 3 ladies. Start with 3, even if it's 1, it doesn't matter, right? We've got somebody, I am interested in doing something different. How can we make this work? But you do have to start with building that confidence. I think that's quite key.
I think we got a great comment over here that says, I think women underestimate themselves. And, you know, what you're saying is really proving that, and community and hope is the tools that are going to help us towards a better future. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, some of these, like, you're absolutely right with this women underestimating themselves. For some reason, exactly like Sakina says, the stereotypical thoughts, right? It's the negative messaging that we tell ourselves that seem to be natural, and it is because of what we have seen our mothers and our grandmothers and, you know, people before them, and it's just being passed down, and there's no break in that cycle. So that's why I mean by the confidence building programs is necessary, right? Because you need to break that cycle. You need to change the way you talk to yourself. You need to change the way you talk to your community, your friends. Once you start talking differently, everybody around you will start talking differently. It'll take time. It's not instant. It's not overnight, but it will happen.
So on the same note, how can we challenge our norms and the cultures that oppress us, not because of fear of speaking out, but the aftermath of speaking out?
I actually don't have a direct answer because I don't think there is a fail-safe formula that will fix it. I think these are the result of archaic cultural beliefs of how women should behave and how men should behave and how community should treat women and how community should treat men. Different communities progress differently. And, you know, I think what's worked in the past, what I've seen is where communities of women find, remember I talked about your persuasive voice. So find a champion, right? And I'm going to say, find if it is the opposite gender that is oppressing, then you need to find a champion within that gender, because that champion will then get through to them. Be that persuasive voice that pushes this person forward to argue your case, to spread the message for you, to change mindsets for you. And that's the only way that will change, right? So while that is happening, I'm not asking you to sit idly by and twiddle your thumbs. You also have to do the work, right? You still need to build yourself, you still need to build your knowledge, and you need to show that you actually have the ability, and you do. So yeah, there isn't a direct answer, Netra. Unfortunately, you know, it's really difficult when the negative messages are still circulating, even though there's a community that's giving you a different message. But I will say that you have to be true to that. You have to trust that that will change. And the other, I guess, the other solution would be that, you know, if it isn't working and if it isn't moving the way you want to be moving, then unfortunately you need to find a different way or a different place that allows that growth. And that's what I said, right? The movement of the percentage of women in various countries shift because of immigration. And immigration is a big solution that a lot of women take to move themselves forward because they haven't been able to garner that support. But I don't think that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I think, you know, if there is that self-belief and you know that you have the power, then we have to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to regret not trying.
So if women are confident and ready to rock, but there's the stereotypical thought that lasts till today, and how do we diminish what the thoughts are and that are being used against them?
Change what you're reading, change what you're watching, change what you're exposed to. Only then will you be able to change the stories that you tell yourself. Make it like, it's like exercise, you know? Not everybody likes to go for a run. Not everyone likes to go to the gym. But make it like a thing that you have to do. Schedule it if you need to, right? And slowly that schedule starts with 15 minutes and then you increase it to half an hour, you increase it to 45 minutes, you then increase it. Like, so the same thing. What are you reading? Watch what you're reading. Keep a journal, right? Keep a journal of what you're reading and how it made you feel. Do that over 2 weeks and you will notice a difference. It is a huge exercise that needs to be done. And that's the only way that you can give yourself that oomph, right? You can be ready to, like you said, you know, they're confident and they're ready to go, but they're still plagued by all these messages. The only way to do it is to change what you're reading, change what you're exposed to, change the people that you're talking to, change the people that you're getting advice from. You need a champion to push you forward.
So I think to give you a little cool down session, I just wanted to raise some comments that have been circulating in the chat. There are no opportunities for remote jobs for ladies who want to work from home and to be independent. Women should know their potential, think wider and wider. Only then they cannot be the reason for such stereotypical thought. I think it's best that we address the issue starting with young girls from school. It becomes easier to develop as they grow the idea, hence making it sustainable. Things that hinder us are lack of representation, cultural and societal norms, lack of support, harassment, and discrimination. We need to maintain our character that much stronger and have strong impact on society. We need to realize our potential and reach to every young girl out there, being independent to inspire the younger ones and the power of determination, which will lead us to build communities that are sustainable. So we can move on to the next question, and I'd like to kind of club them together. Why do females lack leadership positions over males, and how do we build platforms to fix that by coming together and creating sustainable communities?
Start your own companies, right? Work with people like KeyNote. Look, the straightforward answer to that is because, unfortunately, it's a legacy employment issue, right? Who are the leaders of that company, of these companies that are hiring? Who have they put in place? Again, it's, somebody said there's this patriarchal belief that the role of a woman is still in the kitchen and still in the bedroom. And despite all that women have done in my small little 40 years that I've been alive, is still not enough to convince some people that we're, better, right? I don't have an answer to that, why there are more people. The only thing I will say is that the thought process has not evolved the way women have evolved. And that's why you find a lot of women leaving corporate, right? And starting their own. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, okay? A lot of women have left companies because they can't be bothered to fight the fight because it takes too long. They have to talk to people who have ideas that are stuck in the 1950s. And so what they've done is they've left and they've started their own companies, which they run beautifully. So my only advice would be maybe to find women-led companies, support women-led companies more, and hopefully that tide of change will happen a little faster. There was a stat a couple of years ago during International Women's Day that we are still Binu, correct me if I'm wrong, some 250 years away from getting where we should be.
That's right.
Yeah, where we should be in terms of women representation on boards. It is happening. It's very slow. And the only way we can do it is just keep talking about it and speaking up about it.
And I think that all goes back to sustainable communities, and these are the sustainable communities that exist today.
That's right. Absolutely.
So to end off on a more personal note, can you share any specific instance where you felt like your gender played a role in how you were treated or the opportunity that was available to you?
Okay, so I started life in corporate, right? I worked for major companies, and where I think in Malaysia and Singapore, it's fairly, when you start work, everybody's kind of put on the same levels. But as you go higher and higher and more senior, it almost feels like the requirements for a woman to make it is that much more than for a man. And I talk about women who get annoyed and just sick and tired of talking to people who are stuck in the 1950s. That's pretty much what happened to me. I think I just decided that it wasn't worth going head to head. Also because I decided that I wanted to spend a little bit of time figuring out what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I was trained to do anymore. So yes, I have faced a little bit of that gender disparity, definitely. It didn't make it easier when I found out that I was paid less than my male colleagues. Simply because, you know, the reasons would be silly things like, oh, you joined a month after him, or, you know, he's taken on a larger client, even though I took on more clients. So, you know, these reasons don't really point to ability. Didn't really point to knowledge base. It didn't really point to clarity of thought from the employers that I was working for at the time. And so I left and I started my own company. And then obviously COVID hit. So, I mean, you know, really, and so now, I mean, but the flip side, okay, so the flip side is I now work for a nonprofit that is all female. And I have to say a good mix is necessary. I think you do need a mix of genders. You do need a mix of genders to create a community that supports each other. Because sometimes an all-women workplace may not necessarily be easy to work at, right? Because everyone's got various issues that need to be taken care of, and you also need different viewpoints. A lot of the time when we're all in the same community and we all work together, we all have similar viewpoints. So we're not learning as fast as we should be learning. So as far as I am a big advocate of women supporting women, I do thrive on a mixed work environment where gender is not the deciding factor when you talk about skill-based, when you talk about the kind of work that you can do, the kind of programs that you can do, right? So it needs to be on a knowledge base. So yeah, I have been on the brunt of it. I've dealt with it in my own way. May not necessarily be the right way, but it's worked for now. There's nothing to say that I won't go back to major corporate. But I have to say, though, I mean, I left corporate almost 20 years ago, and it hasn't really changed very much from when I started work. So yeah, despite all the awareness and despite all the talks and training and, you know, all sorts of HR involvement that have been going on in larger corporates over the last 20 odd years, I don't really see a huge shift.
Once again, thank you, Aarathi, for this presentation. Today's session is just an example of the conversation that we need to support each other in the way that we talk to each other, in the way that we start movements, in the way that we enter the corporate environment. So thank you once again, and thank you to our audience for the engagement and for listening and for starting the conversations on your own behalf and sharing your thoughts. If you need any more details, please visit our website, www.spunko.com, and our partner, KeyNoteWomenSpeakers.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead.